welcome back to the Professional Lovers channel. I'm Al.
I'm Patty, and we are the
Professional Lovers.
Here for another episode recap of Married at First Sight. And if you're new to our channel, welcome. We've been married 29 years. We like to facilitate relationships by talking about the issues through the lens of Married at First Sight couples. So if you like what you hear, subscribe, like, leave comments and the feedback. We like to respond to comments as well, and tell somebody else.
Yes.
And for those of you who are our regulars, hey, glad to be back. We had a little volatile episode this week. We had group activities, couple activities, as well as girl time and guy time. So we're going to cover it all. We're going to start now. We're going to start a little slowly with Dominic and McKinley. As Dominic continues to pull McKinley out of his comfort zone and was very confused because McKinley's style of humor is interesting.
Yeah.
I can understand somebody who likes to joke all the time, but his joking borderlines on just straight out lying.
Fabrication.
I mean, like, okay, so if you know him, like you've been around him,
he's a jokester.
Yeah.
So
then telling somebody that, oh yeah, I've been horseback riding since I was a kid, they would know that you're like being funny.
You're lying.
Because a person who knows him would know that he's being funny, right? Someone who doesn't know him, like Dom, is going to believe what you said, right? And then you turn around and you are like not happy with the experience of riding horses. And then you say, that was my first time ever on a horse. And she's like, what? This morning you were like, oh yeah, I've been riding horse. Oh, I'm just joking. She don't know that.
True.
So it just comes out as a lie.
Yeah.
To say the least, she got really irritated with his joking because,
she's constantly told him that she's a no-nonsense kind of girl. A no BS kind of girl.
Yeah.
And all he does is BS.
And complain. And that has started to get on her nerves as well.
Yeah, that's
the constant complaining about, because as she told her mom, he's going to do it anyway. So why bring down the positive energy of the activity and doing it together by complaining about it?
Yeah.
Well,
from the onset, before you even do it.
Yeah.
Now, after the fact, if you've done it first time, hey, that's not something I would have normally done, but hey, it was okay, or whatever the case may be.
And that was her whole thing. If he did it on the back end, it would be better than doing it on the front end.
Yeah, just do it.
Because then it makes a person feel like
pressured, and
you're just doing it because you feel obligated.
Exactly.
Not that you're doing it
to be adventurous, to try to have fun,
to try something new.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that he has to enjoy everything that she enjoys.
No.
But if you're gonna do it,
do it.
Do it.
Don't complain about it.
So for her, she said that, on a scale from 1 to 10, she would say that her attraction to him is about a 6.5. And the romance is at a 3. So he did end up, apologizing toward the end of the episode. Realizing that what he thinks is funny is not coming across as funny.
True.
And that she's feeling a little frustrated and turned off by the constant joking. So, and Shaq is another one who apparently is constantly joking, but we'll get to them in a minute. So, that was Dom and McKinley. We're going to save the next couple of last. Let's go to Jasmine and Eris. They're having a very interesting dynamic between them. Now, let me set the stage.
Yeah, certain things have
flipped.
Yeah. to say the least.
Let's set the stage. Honeymoon night, he was sleepy.
So he was sleepy.
She came out dressed in her cute nightie, and he perked right up.
Poof. I mean, was like, yeah.
Yeah. Then, on the day they were leaving for the honeymoon, he was all hyped about how, he was going to get some. He was going after that. He was talking about sex the whole, in the beginning of, and all the couples noticed it, right? So sex is on his brain with his wife, who he's attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now that she kind of put the brakes on at first, everybody said, we want the emotional connection and everything, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. But once she put the brakes on, because his whole MO has been centered around sex. They call him a reformed player.
He's a hunter-gatherer.
Yeah. So his whole relationship pattern in the past has been centered around sex.
Mm-hmm. Not love.
But not now, because she kind of stopped that.
Yeah, and when we say stop, it's just a situation in which it's about the emotional connection, getting to know you. And, he asked a question. I think, it was a tongue-in-cheek, but he was interested in the answer, what's
last week.
What's your favorite sexual position, and she was like, and I think from that, it kind of, threw him off the cliff a little bit. But it was only because I think he put more into the question or more into the response than he needed to. Because again, this is still a stranger. This is somebody that's new. I mean, yeah, it's not to say that you can't talk about it, but that's not going to be something that you talk about right out the gate,
But he did say that he wasn't sure how he was supposed to be feeling about not getting involved in sex right away, because that's what he's been used to.
Mm-hmm.
So her kind of putting the brakes on initially seems to have watered down his...
I think it just short-circuited him. Really. I think he's short-circuited right now, not knowing what to do. And it's almost like, being that that's not part of the game, then I don't know how to play.
Yeah, and so he's feeling more of a friend vibe. He's in the friend zone.
That's in his head.
Yeah, because even though she put the brakes on, now she's kind of like, he tells me I'm beautiful. He tells me that I'm, that he's attracted to me, but he's not showing it.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
And you said...
What did I say?
You said that she wants to be chased.
Yeah. I believe that's part of it, and that's the natural order of things. But when the chase tends not to be there, it's confusing for a woman, a wife, when it's not part of the game. I mean, it's not part of the flow. She wants to feel wanted, and if he thinks that he's in a friend zone and he's not pursuing, then she's pretty much feeling the same way, that this is a friend zone and she ain't trying to feel that. But it's like she only put on the brakes because it was early. He almost like
you said, it short-circuited him.
Yeah.
Because he said, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to feel.
Yeah.
Because sex was not an immediate part of the equation, it just threw him off.
It did.
And so and then on top of that, she's feeling pressure about the fact that he said he's never been in love.
Yeah.
And so she's like, well, how do I know that he could fall in love with me? If I'm putting all this stuff out, and she talked to him about it. If I'm putting all this energy out and I'm doing all of this and you're not feeling the love, or, it's like, I'm not sure how much I should put out.
Yeah. Because
how much energy
I should put into it. Going to be reciprocated.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're kind of stuck.
Well, he needs to.
He needs to get out of his head.
Just be himself. He just needs to be himself, his authentic self. Okay, you a hunter gatherer. Go hunt. She'll let you know.
But she was encouraged by his saying that he is up for the challenges, of putting this relationship together. That he is up forward with for the hills and the valleys, as he said.
The ups and downs.
The ups and the downs. He's here for it, and that made her feel, a little bit more hopeful. Nicole and Chris, they are the ones, at least on camera, having the best conversations.
Yeah. I wish everybody conversed.
Thank you.
I'm with the professor. You converse. You don't conversate.
Thank you.
Converse.
Just a little sidebar, but.
Whew. But
they've been having the best conversations.
It's true. I mean, they've been impactful. They've been vulnerable. They've been genuine, and they've been appreciated.
Yeah.
And I think that their time has been spent best out of every.
I agree. They talked about the cuddling, they talked about the emotional connection, and they talked about sex. And they shared that they've both had kind of extreme issues with sex, and some they didn't have much, and others it was too much. Yeah, and so just having those kind of vulnerable conversations about their past relationships and where they are with those different issues now, and what they expect and what they don't expect. They've been doing a lot of great talking. Yeah. He admitted that he, could sometimes be a little lazy, but he was worried that would turn her off. Mm-hmm. And she was like, if you weren't working and doing the kind of stuff you described, we'd have a problem. Yeah. But if you're working and she's like, I can be the same way. But
when you're alone, you can be anything you want to be.
Right. But when it comes to doing laundry, doing sheets, I'll handle the sheets because that needs to be done every week. And he's like, sometimes I'll wait 2-3 weeks, and that's the kind of discussions you're wanting to have to understand how to integrate your routines into each other to either form new routines.
Yeah. But then just to understand each other, as opposed to going through the process and there being no discussion about it, and you're expecting one to do it, or you're expecting somebody's expecting somebody else to do whatever needs to be done, and nobody's doing it, and somebody ultimately gets frustrated about it.
And right now, I'm saying that on purpose, right now, there's no judgment from the two of them toward the other as they're having these kind of discussions. And so they've been really healthy. The best couple when it comes to the kind of things they're talking about. Kirsten and Shaq. She, is talking about becoming more and more attracted to his personality and his they went dancing together and they really vibed with that. And in the group talking, she talked about how, she told him, she wasn't into bald heads, but now she's overlooking that because everything else is coming to the forefront.
Big personality. The person is more interesting than something that I might not necessarily like otherwise.
Yeah. So, they did have a little awkward conversation that turned into, her telling him that he joked too much.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I just like to have fun, and I just, and
You're telling me not to be myself.
Right, and that,
That's not what she was saying.
And that kind of got into a little, a
little tense back and forth.
Yeah. And she was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. And it's just the time and place for everything. And, there's a time to be funny and fun, and there's a time to be serious. And when I'm trying to get to know you as a stranger on a serious level, that's what I want. I want serious conversation because I'm trying to get to know you. And that seemed to back him up a little bit.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay,
Yeah, it wasn't about necessarily cutting him off or trying to restrict him from being his authentic self.
Right.
But in this scenario, we don't have the luxury of, I'll see you tomorrow or I'll see you next week and we can continue this thing.
Yeah, don't have the luxury of time.
Right. We're in this right now and we need to make the best of the short time that we have to get to know each other the best we can, so in order to continue with this.
So after a little defensive, you don't want me to be me, I don't know how I'm supposed to be, he finally accepted what she was saying and and gave a hug and walked off.
Yeah, I don't think his tenseness was necessary.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't trying to change him.
No. All right. The last couple who kind of set off a firebomb amongst everyone else, which became a topic of discussion amongst everyone else, Gina and Clint. So, last week, Gina said that, it wasn't her normal practice to be with redheads or people with gingery features.
Yeah.
And,
And I never thought of that as being a negative connotation toward anyone who had, sandy hues or, redheads or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. But bottom line is he took it, but he didn't appreciate it.
He held on to it.
So in the group setting with all of the couples, as they begin talking about attraction levels and where everybody is, and again, Kirsten talked about not being attracted to bald heads, whatever. Clint decides that was the appropriate time to let everyone know that Gina is not his normal type either.
Yeah. I usually go for the slender, more athletic looking type woman.
But he did say, attraction can grow. I believe that can grow as well. So bottom line was he did the same thing Gina did, and it came across as a tit for tat. Yeah. Okay, you hurt my feelings about not being attracted to me, so I'm going to hurt your feelings about not being attracted to you.
But the manner in which he did it was tacky.
Yeah, only I'm going to tell you that I'm not attracted to you.
In a group.
Right, in front of everybody else. Yeah. And we're going to throw slender in there. We're not just talking about color features. Mm-hmm. We're talking about body type. Yeah. Now.
Everybody.
Now.
All them ladies in there have more than one curve.
Okay.
And it ain't on their earlobe.
All of them are ample. Jasmine would be the only one who's not quite as ample as everyone else. Mm. But everybody's curvy.
Hippie, breasty, hourglass.
Everybody. And all the women wanted to punch him out.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting that in Girl Time, they brought it up to Gina. Mm-hmm. They, uplifted her. Mm-hmm. And I like how Nicole asked, okay, so are you going to, do you want to work this out? Or do we need to,
sister solidarity. We need to do.
Yeah, so, and it was interesting because, they were like you know, how rude, no, not slightly.
Well, okay.
They were very offended. Okay. All the women were very offended.
But it was offensive.
Because of how he did it. And again, you know, we already said Gina shouldn't this should not be really a topic of discussion about your attraction level.
You don't have the luxury of choosing. I mean, that's why you got into this. You allowed somebody else to pick someone for you.
Exactly.
So they're not going to have the visual aesthetic. More than likely, they're not going to have any parts of the visual aesthetic of what you're accustomed to choosing for yourself. But your choices have not been all that great.
Yeah.
Which is why you're in this situation. So accept it. That's a given. That's out of your control. So why even remark on it?
Now, when the guys were talking about it, and because again, they're sharing, McKinley pipes up, she is gorgeous. I mean, I don't know what kind of problem you have with her, because man, what is your problem? She is great. She is, and Eris looks at him like, dude, you're talking about somebody else's wife. What are you doing? And I said, well, that just, you know, he's used to dating Latina women. So he's, you know, for him, you know, she's a 100.
Yeah. She worked for him, evidently.
So, but what I found interesting is when Kirsten and Shaq were sharing what the discussion was in, you know, with the women versus the men, and Kirsten, you know, was saying that Clint was just rude. He was just, you know, and Shaq was like, excuse me, I didn't see why what he said was offensive. I mean, he was just telling the truth about what he, you know,
but
about
he could have said it
what he preferred.
He could have said it differently. And again, that's that element of companionship or selection is out of your control. You could talk about all the characteristics you want, but when it comes down to finding a person with all the attributes and elements that you like in a person, you get it as part of their personality, their character, the things that you want in a person. It has nothing to do with the look.
Yeah. So the other thing I didn't like about what Shaq said was Eris feels the same way about Jasmine. And Kirsten was like, but he's always... he always says she's beautiful, and he's like, well, he's just saying that to make her feel good. I was like, dude, first of all, you're throwing the guy under the bus.
Yeah, and that's your
personal opinion. And to say that he's just saying that to make her feel good means that he's lying, because Kirsten was like, so he's lying, and that was just not his place.
True.
To say that.
Yeah, some things you don't necessarily have to answer. You know. And
that took me back to last season, and Justin always in the middle of
what's the name? The Oriental guy.
Yeah, and the Oriental girl's business. Yeah. And then talking too much. So I didn't appreciate that from Shaq, because you know
it's gonna get back.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anticipate a little more drama.
Yeah. So Gina and Clint ended in a really negative
space.
Yeah. And, you know, I think she was waiting to hear some kind of apology for him to sound apologetic. And he was steadily trying to justify why he said what he said and what he meant by it. He did apologize and said that, you know, it was not my intention to offend. But Clint has very low EQ, meaning emotional quotient. When she made the comment, I need somebody who can read a room, he's not that person.
No, he's not.
And that was even clear in the guy's time, as he was talking about other people, you know, when somebody else would share, like he was talking to Chris about, you know, you just need to go ahead and be your true self. You can't, change for her.
Don't let her change you.
Yeah, and sorry, relationships require some compromise.
Exactly.
No, you don't let somebody force you into not being your authentic self. But sometimes maybe your authentic self needs a little tweaking.
True.
Because being your authentic self as a single person and being your authentic self as part of a couple,
there's some variation.
Means that there's going to be a little change.
Yeah.
Not to the sole characteristic of who you are.
Not your naturalness.
But maybe some behaviors.
But being other-centered, you're going to sacrifice a little bit of yourself, even to allow somebody to have space within your existence.
Right.
So you're going to have to give up some of your space in order for them to dwell in you.
And vice versa.
Right.
Yeah. So it ended, I think Gina did not need to end it by saying, I think we need to spend the rest of the honeymoon apart. That, for me, that was a little on the childish side.
Mm-hmm.
But then he's making these comments as she's walking away.
That's adult. That's grown up.
And that came across
as
obnoxious.
Yeah, that's the word.
And Clint has a little measure of being obnoxious.
Well, I think what's really going to come out is that the boy's got a big ego.
Yeah, he does come across that way. But I don't think that she needed to be that severe because once again, he is with her.
Again, I think
he expressed attraction to her.
Mm-hmm. But she was looking for something that she didn't get and she was upset. So that's how it came out.
And so she walked away.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. But all his little jabbing as she was walking away was just as childish and unnecessary, because you're just jabbing at each other, and you're not really. Nobody was really listening in that exchange.
Exactly, and that's what I think is an element within their communication effort. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if it's a style, but in their effort, they don't listen because at one point in time. He asked about, he asked her a question. And she started talking about the shop and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, and that was the other thing. He was tired of her talking about the salon.
Yeah. But then she asked, well, what about you? And he said one thing. And she was like, well, yeah, And then she went back into her spiel.
It triggered.
And I mean, I saw that on his face. He was like, that's all I get?
Yeah.
And so, again, he's accustomed to being the center of his own universe. And that's just me.
And the guys kind of said that too.
Yeah. But
Chris was like, yeah, that's Clint. And we just let Clint be Clint. He's got to, tell everybody his opinion and whatever. And we just, that's just who he is.
Yeah, well. When it comes down to sharing, and I'm saying sharing of yourself, sharing of, your space and integrating, with someone, you have to sacrifice whoever you think you are. And maybe that's a wrong way of putting it, but in order to get to know an individual, you kind of have to, you have to let them be what they want to be in your space at that time, and hopefully you are provided that same return where you can become who you need to be to that person and be vulnerable and let them know a little bit more about what your soul is all about.
So hopefully next week, Clint and Gina will have talked things out and, get on a better page.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
It's a 180-degree turn from marriage day.
Yeah. But we've been waiting. We've been waiting for this, right? Yeah. Gang, we knew it was coming. So here we go.
Yeah.
So that's it for this week. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week. Until then, you know what we say. We want you to love yourselves.
And each other.
Bye.
Peace.